But yeah, and here it is since, the 30s. It's almost 100 years now
Yes.
that this research has been going on, and a lot of people still don't know about it or aren't familiar with it, or they will instantly reject it. Oh, no.
I
They
found a
don't
lot
need
of
this.
people doing that when I was discussing the show topic. But we are at the top of the hour, and we'll be back right after this news break. And you know what? I know we could all use a little good news today, so here's hoping. We'll be back after this.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lori London. Attorney General William Barr says he expects to release the special counsel's report by mid-April, if not sooner. NPR's Carrie Johnson reports the document is nearly 400 pages long.
The Attorney General says he's willing to testify before the House and Senate Judiciary Committees in early May. Bill Barr says he's making progress in reviewing Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report. The AG says there could be redactions to protect grand jury material, sources and methods, and ongoing investigations. But Barr says everyone will soon be able to read most of the report on their own. He says he doesn't believe it would be in the public interest for him to summarize the report or to release it in bits and pieces. The AG says he'll make the report public after he delivers it to key members of Congress. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
President Trump's national security advisor is blasting Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro for using foreign military personnel to stay in power. As NPR's Michelle Kellerman reports, that now includes direct support from Russia.
In his written statement, National Security Advisor John Bolton strongly cautions actors outside the hemisphere from deploying military assets to Venezuela. He calls it a direct threat to international peace and security in the region. The U.S. Special Representative on Venezuela, Elliot Abrams, won't say what the U.S. might do in response.
I would just say that we have options, and that I think it would be a mistake for the Russians to think they have a free hand here. They don't.
Russia has sent troops and equipment to Venezuela, and Abrams says the U.S. is watching. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
About 1 million protesters took to the streets of Algiers today. It's the 6th straight week of demonstrations demanding the resignation of Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. Jake Siganero in Paris tells us this has been the biggest demonstration yet.
Week by week, the crowds have gotten bigger in the capital and around the country. Bouteflika canceled upcoming presidential elections, and since then, even his closest allies say after 20 years in power, it's time for him to go. The military chief says the president is unfit to rule, but protesters suspect that it could lead to a military coup. They don't want any semblance of the current government and want to completely rebuild Algeria's political system.
That's Jake Siganero reporting. While many resent the power held by Bouteflika, they also reject the idea of army intervention in civilian political life. Today's report on consumer spending suggests the economy slowed down in the first quarter. Consumer spending accounts for more than 2/3 of the U.S. economic activity. On Wall Street, the Dow closed up more than 200. This is NPR. Legendary filmmaker Agnès Varda has died. She was 90 years old. In a career that spanned more than 60 years, she was known as the mother of the French New Wave, as NPR's Elizabeth Blair reports.
Agnès Varda was known for poetic explorations of the human condition. A drifter, a singer waiting to find out if she has cancer. At age 88, Varda and the street artist, known as JR, traveled the French countryside in the documentary Faces Places. On village buildings, they plastered enormous photos of the locals they met, farmers, striking dock workers. As Varda put it, people with no power.
Chaque visage a une histoire.
Every face has a story, Varda says in the film. Varda was a trained photographer, and it shows. Critic Roger Ebert said she captured the essence of her characters in their placement in space and light. Agnès Varda received an honorary Oscar for her body of work. Elizabeth Blair, NPR News.
Thousands of students in Berlin have skipped school again today to take part in a rally demanding climate change action. Swedish teen Greta Thunberg, who inspired the school strike, protests in Germany and elsewhere, is leading the rally through Berlin's government district. The weekly protests have been mostly welcomed by German politicians, though some say they shouldn't be done during school hours. One student responding with a banner stating, "I'll go to school if you cool the planet." This is NPR News.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Hello there. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I am Kat Hobson, your host. Tonight I'm joined by Stephen Myers. Stephen is an advocate for the Great Pyramid's function as a water pump, and he has created the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. You can find that website at www.thepump.org. And, this is a topic that I find fascinating because when you stop to think about the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, as a piece of infrastructure, well, all the things that don't make sense about it kind of fall into place. And it's something that I heard Stephen talk several years ago, and I kind of researched the idea, read his books, and I'm sorry to say I'm rusty on them. I've been refreshing. But the whole concept, while unusual, is not unrealistic. I mean, we do things like that. We're pretty fascinating. We have people who are intelligent that come up with methodologies to do that. I'm married to a machinist who is frankly astounded by the construction and the stone cutting that is involved in that, as well as other ancient sites. He just thinks it's astounding that people could do that without power tools. Well, if they could build a water pump, they could figure out power tools, right?
That's correct. The Industrial Revolution started with water power, if you will, in the United States. It was in the Atlantic Northeast, and they had waterfalls, so that's where they built the factories. They could power, factories with water wheels. So water and machinery go hand in hand since the Industrial Revolution. So yes, and we think that the Great Pyramid, the pumped water, was used probably to generate electricity, power machinery, and do a host of other things that we may not even know about.
Well, they didn't all just sit around and draw pictures. So,
no, they didn't.
I mean, that is fascinating. The methodologies used to communicate in that time frame are astounding to me. What's even more astounding to me are the people that can interpret them. I am so in awe of people that do that work and have done all that research, and my hat is off to them because I don't have the patience. I studied Latin and it made me cross. So we have a comment in chat, which is the Romans had water running in their homes. They just didn't know about lead poisoning. So why could the Egyptians also not have figured out how to pump water inland? I mean,
that's true.
There's other histories, other places in history that accomplished this. This is not an isolated incident.
Yes, the ancient Romans did have an extensive aqueduct system.
Yes,
and but they did use some pipes that were made of lead, and there was consequences to that. So, but yeah, there's a lot of high technology in ancient times. So even in South America, they did brain surgery that was successful. There's a lot of skulls that are evidence of that. The terrapanning, if you will, is brain surgery. And so ancient people were geniuses. They weren't knuckle draggers. And they had the same wants, needs, and desires that we have, which is that our kids eat every day and that we don't have to work 14 hours a day and other things like that. So that's what I think the Great Pyramid did. And it's some people, like that idea and feel it's compelling.
I do. I am, I was curious when I was reading, and I know that you consider the water pump as an alternate to fossil fuel.
I do.
In what way would having a structure such as the pyramid or a water pump such as that, even on a smaller scale, what would you anticipate that doing to eliminate fossil fuel needs?
Well, it's a lot of water pumps, especially in the third world countries, are powered by gasoline engines, or if they're a little bit bigger water pumps, by diesel engines, and those are fossil fuels. But if you can use this unique water pumping system that doesn't use fossil fuels, it would replace that both of those types of fuels. I know that in the poverty-stricken areas of the third world, they can't afford expensive fuels from the east and then expensively machined water pumping systems from the west. So more people die every day from lack of water or lack of clean water than twice as many that were killed at 9/11. So every day there's 2 9/11s, but they're not in New York City. They're just oftentimes people of color or just kids that die from dysentery or lack of clean water or lack of irrigation water. So that's what one of the goals of our nonprofit foundation is to reduce, that death toll by providing an additional alternative to generate electricity.
That's a beautiful thing.
I appreciate that.
What about the other cultures that had these pyramidal type structures? You had them, well, actually they're around the globe. They're not just Mayan and Aztec. They're in China. They're across Asia. Do you feel that this was something that was shared? And if so, there's not a historic record of people being able to travel those distances to communicate. How would those ideas have evolved in that way? And do you feel any of those others are pumps as well?
That's an excellent question. There are a lot of pyramids around the world, both ancient and modern, and they all serve some sort of a purpose. There's a pyramid in Las Vegas, a pyramid at the Louvre, South America, China, like you say, ancient and modern. And they're all built with different degrees of workmanship, different sizes. The angles of the sides are different. Some pyramids in Mexico or South America area are made out of stone rubble, if you will, or dirt. Others, like the Great Pyramid, are quite precise in their construction and made out of large stones. So they have different construction techniques, and you can't lump them all together, certainly. So I think the Great Pyramid is the only one that was built to be a machine that pumped water. Other pyramids don't have the same passages and chambers, or they're made out of dirt or that type of thing. So, some in South America have little houses on the top and that type of thing, a platform, steps. So much different.
Well, I know that there are step pyramids and stuff also, but are there no others that are known to man that have similar interiors?
No, none have similar interiors to the design of the interior of the Great Pyramid. The Grand Gallery is known for having stones that were placed together. You can't even put a razor blade between them. Right. And they have mortar that's stronger than the stone itself between the stones. If the Grand Gallery wasn't already built